Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Narrative Control Podcast. I'm here with my friend Rob Henderson. Rob, how are you doing?
Hey, good, Richard. Great to be here. How are you?
I'm doing great. So this time we're going to actually do a timely show. We did The Sopranos and we did some other things that were a little bit older, but this is Succession, which ended I think a few months ago, and it was like the hottest thing on Twitter. I wish we could have I wish you could have talked about it back then, but you had to get caught up, and I had watched it before you. Um, and I genuinely like this show. I mean, I don't like the hit shows like that everyone loves. Sometimes I like them, sometimes I don't. But this one I really, really liked, and I could go into why. But what was your feeling about it?
Yeah, I was very impressed with it. Multiple people had told me, "Oh, you got to watch Succession. You got to watch Succession." I remember seeing the promos and the ads and everything for it, and I didn't know what it was. I actually literally thought it was like a show about royalty and like succession in terms of like a monarchy and a throne. And then when
You know
I
what? I got it
saw what
confused.
it
Me too.
really
I got
was,
it confused. Wasn't there a show like about there was like a Texas ranch, like somebody has a ranch or something, and it's like Succession who's going to own the ranch. I don't know. I thought it was that. I thought
yeah.
I got confused with another show. But go ahead.
No. I mean, I knew that like Brian Cox was like, this sort of like esteemed, respected old actor. And for some reason, like I just thought of it as like this sort of show about a monarchy. And then like once it got started and I saw what it was, I was like, oh wow, this is like really interesting. And yeah, I was captivated. It was an incredible show. It's nice to see HBO like produce a show that is popular and it's like sort of their flagship show now that's not about like dragons and robots and like the fantasy stuff. I never really got into like the HBO sci-fi and fantasy stuff. Game of
Um,
Thrones wasn't really my thing.
no,
Um
that's
but
strange.
yeah,
How far did you get in Game of Thrones?
I finished. Okay, so I watched the first season all the way through and everyone was telling me, "Oh, you just got to stick with it." And I was like, if one season doesn't hook me, I can't continue. So, I was never into fantasy.
I love the first. I've never been into fantasy either, but you don't even know Game of Thrones. You don't even know it's fantasy until late, actually, because the first season, I don't think there's anything supernatural. Anything that's unambiguous is supernatural. Um,
Okay. That's
it might be
fair.
the
Yeah,
or might
yeah.
be the second season. It's pretty it's a while because I remember when for something supernatural happened for the first time. I was shocked. I was like, "Oh wait, this is actually fantasy." Like the dragons are like nobody knows if they're real, like stuff like that. So like they talk about the gods. Nobody knows if any of this stuff is actually like real or they're just like people in some fantasy land, which with the same rules of physics that we have. But yeah, I love Game of Thrones. That's interesting. You weren't, but yeah, keep going on Succession. This is
Yeah.
keep
No, I mean, I
indulge
just
me.
like, maybe my tastes are yeah, I guess a bit more conventional in some sense in that like, I like a show that's very similar. I mean, yeah, most of the shows we've talked about are basically in worlds that are very similar to our own, right? Sopranos and all the
Yeah.
other shows. So yeah, this was yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it and the character development and the relationships and the dynamics between like Tom and Greg and the way that they've sort of developed Greg in a unique way. I mean, yeah, all of it is it's fascinating. Really, the only well, we can get into it later, especially, but it's funny that to me that the Roy family itself, there's almost no character development whatsoever. But the outside, the kind of outsiders of the family, Tom and Greg, they do show like sort of dramatic character arcs and they change over time. Like Greg is definitely not the same person he was when he started. So yeah, to me that was very interesting.
Yeah. So Shiv, I
Yeah,
mean,
great
Shiv,
show.
there's she becomes more, I think she becomes more cynical. Like she's like, looks like she's going to work for that Bernie Sanders guy, Gil. So it
Hmm.
looks like she's trying to make him president. And then like, uh, her dad, Logan, dangles like the succession, in her face, and she just like forgets about her political idealism completely, right? So it's
Yeah.
like it was like she sold out, but it was like too fast. It was like too not even like. So I don't know if like she's just like
I
simple
don't know.
minded
Was
or
it too
is it,
fast? I don't know if she was ever. I mean, I know that she professes to be the sort of the liberal of the family,
mm,
but the fact that she was willing to like betray, like the fact that she was willing to betray her ideals so quickly for power, to me indicates that like maybe her ideals are quite shallow, and that the only
Yeah.
reason she was doing it in the first place was like kind of a fuck you to her dad and to her family, and like I don't
I,
know. I
yeah.
didn't really get the sense that like she was truly
I think you're right,
committed
and
to her
her
politics.
politics were like her politics are like she's not very left wing. Like so she doesn't like the Bernie Sanders guy, Gil. She doesn't like him, and like that other guy likes him, and so she's like wants to work for like moderate Democrats, which indicates like she's just like she's whatever. She's liberal because that's what you're supposed to be, but like she really doesn't care. Not that centrist people can't be passionate, but it seems like that's not what she was. Um, and yeah, you're right. And then like yeah, she wanted to do something different from her dad and her family. Yeah, that makes sense. So no character development. Tom, I tell you what I like about Tom and Greg. Um, Tom, like at the big, like the way he behaves with Greg and the way he behaves with the family is such a contrast. And
Yeah, so
this is
good.
what humans are like because the fiction often doesn't get this. It has you like being one way, but he's like completely. I mean, he's like cowering and like weak in his marriage and with his family. But this guy, he's like an alpha. He's egging him. He's like just playing games with him. He's like kissing up to like those above him, kicking those below him, and humans are like this. Humans can be very different based on the circumstances, based on the nature of the relationship that they're in. You're different from your friend with your friends than with your boss or your wife or whatever. And I think shows don't do a lot of that. And we see like the first like few episodes, like I didn't think they were the same person. I was like confused for a while. Like the guy who like picked on Greg and like Shiv's husband, I thought were like a different guy until like I don't know a few episodes in.
Oh,
And I thought
really?
that was yeah. Well, I mean, I'm bad at like telling
Yeah,
people. I
yeah,
always have
yeah.
that trouble. Like in every show where like everyone's the same race, Game
Yeah.
of Thrones or something. I like often like it's like one thing of diversity. Like I can tell people apart, like
All these
when they
white
don't have
people.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get very I get very confused by everyone when
All these
everyone's like
pale
the same
faced
race.
white.
Yeah,
No,
bad, just
I
bad with
thought that was great
racism.
too. I mean, I think part of the reason why TV shows, I mean, part of it is just lazy writing, like why characters are the same in every scene with every person. It's sort of laziness, but then also I think it's like it sort of helps the viewer, like sort of like what we're describing right now. What you described is like it helps the viewer to track them. Is like, oh, this is the guy who behaves this way. This is the girl who behaves that way. Like it sort of
Yeah,
helps with that, and it takes like a layer of sort of sophistication to sort of create a character like that. And it's kind of interesting that like I can't think of really anyone else who is like this, who yeah, who yeah, you wouldn't necessarily recognize them depending on who they're interacting with.
you're saying on the show.
And yeah, with Tom, and yeah, Tom is
Yeah,
like he was very, I mean, like, right away the way we were introduced to him is, he's trying to find the right time to propose to Shiv. He
uh,
wants to, ingratiate himself with Logan, the patriarch of the family, by buying this watch. And Logan is totally unimpressed with it and gives it to the, that poor, Hispanic boy's family or something. So yeah, I mean, he doesn't seem to understand like the sort of the rules of the game. He himself is kind of a cultural outsider, away for the audience, like an audience surrogate to understand. Greg plays that role too, I think. The Greg character is still kind of an enigma, actually. Like, do you think like is Greg a buffoon, or is he smarter than he lets on? Is he like lucky and keeps failing up? Because we're introduced to him as like this sort of like burnout loser. You remember the famous scene where he pukes through the eyes of the mascot? He's this sort of like
yeah.
stoned guy in a like a goofy costume at a theme park, stoned out of his mind, vomits in the middle of his job. He's about to like get kicked out. His mom like tells him, go ask your, what is he, like his uncle or something, for a job.
His great uncle.
He seems to be like this
He's the
kind of like this
grandson of the
failed
of Logan's. He's the
the
grandson
great
of
uncle.
Logan's
That's
brother.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That guy's
and
what was that guy's
so
name?
I
I
can't
forget.
I can't remember Logan's
Yeah.
brother. Yeah. Um, and so who is Greg? Like, is Greg? Is he a sort of idiot savant? Is he sort of what is he?
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be like. I think he's almost nothing because he's like supposed to be the viewer. Like I think he's like the observer in the situation. So like everything about him is like very sort of plain, right? He's like not too smart, not too dumb. He's like sort of baffled. I think that's what the average viewer might like find themselves if they were like just thrust into this family and doing stuff. So he's like sort of baffled what's going on. He's like scared of, he wants normal stuff. He wants to have like a normal job. He wants to, not go to jail. He wants to
California
make
Pizza
income.
Kitchen.
Yeah, the
Do you
what
remember
was the
that scene
California
with
pizza?
Tom? So
Remind me,
he's
remind
he
me.
gets he gets the job. He finally lands a job with Logan's company. He gets his first paycheck, and Tom sits with him and like asks him like, "Oh, do you want to go to dinner?" And yeah, he
Yeah,
responds. Greg responds like, "Oh yeah, I want to go to California Pizza Kitchen and get their
yeah,
linguine." And Tom is like, "What? Like, what are you talking
uh-huh,
about? Like, that's
yeah,
that's not." He says like, "I'll teach you how to be rich." That was a good
yeah.
scene too.
Yeah. So I didn't know California. I thought California Pizza Kitchen was only in California. I never saw it until I came to California, and I didn't know actually they have it in New York. But okay, yeah, that's right. That's a good scene. So he's yes, and I think he's very important. And he's like he's just like the vehicle through which like the viewer like understands. So I think he's supposed to be average. Like by design, even his politics are like very normy. Like he does not liberal. He's like not too liberal, but like he's concerned when there's like racism around, right? So he's like even that is like hidden. He's supposed to be the viewer. Like oh okay, conservative. Okay, maybe that's bad, but like racism,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have
He
to
doesn't
draw a
like
line there.
ATN, which is like the
Yeah,
stand-in for Fox News in that
yes, he doesn't like ATM,
universe.
but he's not like so passionate about like hating ATM, right? He just sort of doesn't like it, right?
Yeah,
But like the really serious stuff, like the quote unquote racist stuff, like that gets to him, right? Um,
yeah. He
and
was at that
so
that fancy Republican whatever that dinner party
yeah,
event, and
oh,
he
that was
walked
we
by.
got to talk about
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
he
we,
told
we,
Tom, yeah, someone with an undercut called me a soy boy.
yes, and he doesn't know what that is. Yes,
That was
right.
great.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, I mean the politics of the show. Like, I guess we just yeah, I guess we could bounce around. We can do whatever we want. So the politics of this show, I think, so it's like this is what's interesting with they're doing things at a few different levels. So the Logan's brother, I'm gonna look up his name because it's important. Let's see. Logan's brother is named uh, Ewan. Ewan.
Ewan, is it
Ewan,
Ewan?
Ewan, that's
Yeah,
right. It's spelled Ewan. Okay, so Ewan. Okay,
because they're
so
Scottish.
yeah. So he is like, so I said that Greg is like supposed to be the viewer, but I also think Ewan is sort of the viewer too, because when he goes off on Logan a few times about like you're literally, he says at one point, I don't know if he doesn't, I don't think he says it to his face, he says it to somebody else, like you're literally going to kill more people than Hitler because like you deny global warming on your
Yeah.
stations, right?
Hmm.
And so like I think that's supposed to be the viewer too. He's like the principled, like old prophet, like maybe he's like the angel on Greg's shoulder saying like don't compromise with evil, like because conservatives are evil, which I think is like sort of the message of the show, but it's not beating you over the head with it. And you're supposed to observe these people and you find them much more interesting than liberals. um, there's the episode which where they go to the Pierces, which is like a liberal family, right? They're trying to buy
Hmm.
out the liberal family. Um, I think when you watch that episode, you know that you're never going to want to watch a show about the Pierces. They're just not interesting, right? They're just like they have, everything's understated. They go get their PhDs in whatever Africana studies. They want to do good journalism. They have like conventional views. Like they don't like the men are not too masculine, the women are not too feminine. Like there's just a general androgyny to it. Like they probably don't go out and party and like snort coke and like have a good time. You just feel like that they are sort of stand-ins for like the sort of the androgynous elite. How else would you say
Yeah,
androgynous,
I love that
sanitized,
episode. Yeah,
acceptable for
yeah.
HR. And when I saw this episode, I said this. I said this is like the artistic depiction of my two of my articles, right? Why is everything liberal? And liberals read, conservatives watch TV. Um,
Oh,
and
interesting. I didn't realize. Okay, so both of those. What?
which
Yeah,
one
what
did you
was it
think? Which
about
one did you
this?
think it was? I was talking about because I told
I
you
thought you were
before.
talking about liberals read, conservatives watch TV. That's the one I
Yes,
thought you had
it's actually
said that the
more
show
why
made me
why
do.
it's yeah it's actually more why is everything liberal, right? So like
Mm,
they come together. So the story is that these this ATN, the conservatives, the Roys, the main people of the family, are going to buy are trying to buy this like liberal media empire, right?
mm.
Like the Schultzbergs or something, right? Who is that? The name of the New York Times family, the Schultzberg or New York Times editor?
I think that's right. I don't know if that's like what they're supposed to be. Like that
Schultzberg
family
Radio.
is supposed to represent the New York Times family, though.
No, not
But
necessarily the New York Times family. It's hard to think of like a liberal media family, like the Murdochs. Like the ATN is the Murdochs.
yeah,
They're not they're like there's do we have like an equivalent to like the Murdochs in Army? I don't think we do. Um,
could be CNN.
but like
Like Ted, what
like
Ted
Ted Turner?
Turner
Yeah,
could be. I don't know though. I
is
actually
he
don't know
even
his
the owner? Is
politics.
Ted Turner even the owner of CNN anymore?
No, he's not.
Uh,
No, he
yeah,
sold it out. But
and
yeah, I
yeah,
don't. But
well,
anyway,
anyway,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's sort of the point. Like they don't have like there's nobody like the liberal people who own the media are like not prominent enough to be sort of like celebrities. They're sort of it's sort of a class thing where like you're showy,
yeah, yeah.
like you're trying to
It's
prove something.
gauche. It's gauche to be well known and to be in the limelight that way.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, right. So, like, this is one difference, right? So it's like I think they're more, the Pierces are just the Pierces. Like, they're not like there's not like Logan Roy. It's like they have that woman, like the matriarch of the family, but it's like
Mm,
they're seen as a collective. Well, the Roys have a very hierarchical male on, father on top, and then the kids, right? And there's clear where everyone stands. And like the way they interact with each other, so like it's like the people who want to so the Roy family, they're in it basically for the money. You can tell, like, it's not like none of them thinks about politics much at all, like very rarely, right? Like they'll make like snide comments about like this or that, um but it's not like you ever see them reading the newspaper and being like, oh my god, I'm so angry about this cancel culture or whatever. It just doesn't matter. Like they probably think the
yeah, they
cancel
don't care.
culture. They think it's stupid. They definitely think it's stupid. And if they vote, they probably vote for. They probably like Trump. I think Trump is actually perfect for their station, right?
Well, I've heard
For
that people like they watch Succession and think that like that's what the Trumps are really like or something like that. Like Donald Trump is Logan Roy, like that kind of thing.
Well, I
You
mean,
know, like
I don't
these.
know. People misinform people because I don't think people would think Trump is like that on top of
Yeah.
things. I mean, I don't know who thinks that.
But I think people watch that and think that like that is like the sort of like twisted mirror of like the Trump family, or like that's like what evil rich right wingers are really like,
Yeah.
behind closed doors or something. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
so this, I mean, so the difference, I mean, but the Pierce family, they don't want to sell it because they have some kind of idea about what journalism is and what it should be, and they do not like ATN, which they see as sort of like a kind of Fox News sensationalist, kind of outlet, and they don't want to be part of that, and this like matters a lot to them. And like one of them is like the funny scene where he says
oh,
I'm gonna
interesting.
I'm getting he tells the guy tells Shiv I'm getting my second PhD in Africana studies at
At
Princeton, I think it's
Columbia. Oh, was it Princeton?
well,
Okay.
whatever,
Oh, that
one of
was
them.
cool. Yeah, yeah, one of them.
And she goes, "Oh yeah, ha ha ha!" Instead of look, taking the 2 seconds to you don't have to take 2 seconds to look things up anymore, right? You'll know stuff, right? And then that offends him,
Yeah.
and that like sort of that sort of causes problems, right? But
Mm,
like nobody in the Roy family is going to go get like a PhD from Princeton in Africana studies, right? They want to be rich, they want to live it up, they want to go out to nightclubs, they want to they want to get drunk, they want to do drugs. They're like normal people. They are like liberals are like unlike normal people in a lot of ways. I think the Roys they fit in to like people who just go into business and like somebody who stuck it rich in like oil or some kind of entrepreneur or something. And the Pierces are not. The Pierces are like rich people too, but they're more like the people who would have gone into academia or journalism. Like this is probably what people in their family do. That one guy keeps getting PhDs, right? Um, and
yeah,
it
it's a more
matters.
sort
The
of
politics.
intellectual cultural life too. I mean, the who's the matriarch of the Pierce family? She's like, quoting Robert Frost
Yeah,
randomly. She remember before the dinner started, she instead of grace, they quoted a line from Shakespeare.
yeah,
Like it's the sort of like highbrow, like intellectual,
But
like
yeah,
culturally
and Roy
sophisticated.
Logan reads. Doesn't he like? What is he like? Is it the biographies of MacArthur or Patton? Doesn't somebody buy him a Patton or MacArthur? Which one is it? Biography.
I don't remember. Yeah.
He's like, oh, another one of those. Let me see. Logan Roy.
Does he not read? Does
No,
Logan
he
not
does
read?
read. He like loves the biographies of biography of one general. Let me see which it is. Logan Roy.
Okay.
Uh,
MacArthur would seem to Douglas MacArthur. That seems to make more sense for Logan than, although Patton
Patton
himself. I mean,
Patton would
he was
work
also a
too.
kind of strong man.
Who did Logan Roy? Which books? I feel like a lot rides on this, so I'm looking it up. Which books does
Yeah, there aren't
Logan
many
Roy
books depicted
read? Yeah, there are
in
not many. That's
Succession,
true. Um,
which I guess is supposed to be like you're saying, right? Like they're not an intellectual family.
okay, so here's
They're
an
not
entire article.
ideological.
Here's an entire article on like which books appear in the show.
Hmm.
So Logan Roy, he's reading Meditation by Marcus Aurelius. Yes, I can see him reading that. I can see him reading some of the classics, right?
Logan reads Meditations, really?
Uh, Says he is. He says at some point he's reading. Here, let me send you the link. We can look at it. We can look at
Interesting.
it together.
Yeah, that surprises me because I mean that's sort of like, isn't that like a variant of Stoic philosophy? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I guess I
but
can
this applies
arguably
to
that makes
masculine.
sense.
Yeah. Uh,
Okay, yeah, and yeah,
oh
this
no, no.
sort
This.
of like
I'm sorry.
suppression of
I'm
emotion.
sorry. This is. Uh, Wait a minute. No, this is a fantasy thing. Okay, this is
Oh
just
yeah,
like
that makes more
what they should be
sense.
reading. Okay,
Uh,
sorry about that.
okay, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I'm like,
good.
this is actually reading Wolf Hall. I don't remember any of these books.
Yeah.
Um,
What am I
yeah,
doing?
yeah. I don't recall these books being shown on the series.
Okay, well I
But
did.
but yeah, the Pierce family was like, yeah, they made all these like very interesting sort of like blue blooded references. There was let's see, guests were served a cocktail called Hank Pierce's Brake Bumper, which was supposedly a recipe stolen from Teddy Roosevelt's valet.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah,
it's like all of these kind of like obscure cultural references, like, oh, here's this cocktail that only we know about because it's linked to Teddy Roosevelt, and like that. I think like that was an interesting case where the Roy family was an audience surrogate into like this very like old like WASP blue blooded family.
yeah,
Um, that really doesn't seem to be like they're either dying out or they're just not in the limelight as much as like more prominent wealthy families. Um, but yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, the kids
I'm still
themselves are
trying to.
educated too, though. They're not
Yeah,
like
it's driving
dumb
me crazy because
people.
he did get a book. He got a book and he was like, "Oh, another one of these," and it was like a MacArthur biography. It was a pet, something like that. Um, the other one, Connor, is like he's like a libertarian. He's into libertarianism. He likes
Hmm.
Napoleon, right? He's like he's intellectual, but he's like a his interests are different from like with the Pierce family. He likes war. He likes libertarian. He likes like these are like masculine things that he likes, right?
Yeah,
These are
yeah,
very
yeah. That's
and the
true.
Pierces are more
He
like
bought Napoleon's
true.
penis.
Yeah, exactly. I looked up Napoleon's penis, by the way. It's a there's it could be real. Like there's Napoleon's penis keeps getting sold, and it's like nobody knows
Yeah,
if it's real or not. And I think it's miss it. Wait, no, it's somebody owns it right now. A urologist owns it.
Connor Roy. Oh,
Yeah,
urologist owns Napoleon's
yeah.
penis.
Bought it.
Yeah,
Uh,
and Roman Roy made the joke that next he's going to buy Hitler's nutsack.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, this is but the kids
yeah.
themselves. So I looked up I tried to track down where they went to college. All I could find that was confirmed is that Kendall went to Harvard. But that was it. And he went to some like prep school before that, when he
Tom
was a
went to
boy.
Cornell, didn't he? Didn't Tom go to
Oh,
Cornell?
right. Tom went to Cornell, which is,
Yeah.
that was funny. That was a funny
Uh,
little detail they added for him. Um just like Shane and White Lotus, Andy Bernard in The Office, they follow the trope of like Cornell being for the sort of like
yeah.
striver, insecure, not quite a member of the in group, the cool group. Um
By the way, is
and
Shiv
yeah.
Roy? Is she fat? I can't tell. Or is she in shape? I can't tell from the show. Is the real actress?
I think
It's
she just
hard to
has like
tell.
a sort of a what is it mesomorph? Is it a mesomorphic body type? Just kind of a heavier, or big boned, I think they used to call it. but I don't
He's a
think
big
she's fat. I don't think she's fat. Um,
like Hollywood fat. Like that's what I'm trying to.
Hollywood fat maybe, but like, dude, if you saw Shiv Roy in like public life, you would think like, oh, that's just like a normal American girl. Maybe actually
Yeah,
kind of
much
thin.
better than a normal. No, no, she's much better
Yeah,
than
I
a
was
normal
gonna
American
say
girl.
like,
In politics, well, yeah, by
yeah.
far. But like, anyways, so yeah, what were we talking about? Uh,
We were talking about the Pierce family and
yeah,
books and sort of the highbrow culture of the family. And yeah, I mean, I thought it was well, at one point Logan actually calls the Pierces, he refers to them as those blue-blooded fucks, which to me, like I found that an interesting line because Logan and like the whole family, like the whole opening sequence of Succession is like they're on this estate and like the kids are dressed very properly, like horseback riding and like very like
yeah,
shown to be like raised in this very upper class milieu. And then
mhm.
like, but you can like Logan, you
Yeah.
can see that he
He's an
has this
he's an
sort of
immigrant. Isn't he an immigrant? He came from like wasn't he Scottish? And he came to the U.S. and had nothing basically.
yeah, he was a raised in like poor working class Scotland and like built the empire himself and seems to have like some he holds on to some sort of bitterness from his class origins and yeah like saying terms like those blue-blooded fucks and like they drive by his childhood home and he refuses to get out and like that may not necessarily be because of class because there were signs I think in season 1 you see Logan climbing out of the pool and he had all these scars on his back, which I think were to indicate that like he was basically abused as a kid. And I guess like, the viewer is
What
supposed
happened?
to yeah, this was
Well,
I think the end of season 1. He climbs out of a swimming pool and there's all these scars on his back. And I think the viewer is supposed to infer that maybe part of why Logan is who he is because he was, brutally mistreated. And he makes reference to this throughout the show too, of like, I know things about people that you don't know, and that's why I'm able to, do what I do. Um,
yeah,
so yeah. I mean, he had a different, different upbringing than the sort of older generation of the Pierce family, right? That was like generational wealth that
yeah,
that the Roys don't have.
right.
And I've
And
seen this
so
with like there was this article in the Wall Street Journal about what they wear, like these black caps and like the sort of clothes that they wear, and it's like they follow fashion trends basically, and like real like blue bloods don't actually do that, right? Like they have like this sort of timeless, understated, plain quality.
uh,
Um, yeah.
yeah. So so I mean to finish like so that episode I think it's this demonstrates like I think this is realistic. I mean I think this is like if you look at like the Murdoch family, you don't see you don't see like real ideology. You do see like even like the stuff like they say like one of the Murdoch kids is like more conservative and one is more liberal. But it's like a family thing. He's like even like the way that Trump like Murdoch like I think always like divorces a wife. I don't know how many times has Rupert Murdoch been married. Rupert Murdoch marriage. So this is like a new rich versus old blue blood money, right? I think they're I think that somebody like the conservative side, they're probably likely to trade for a new wife, right? And Logan did that. Yeah.
Mm.
So Rupert Murdoch has had 4 wives. Um, and Logan had 2, and as he cheats on, I think he still cheats on her, with that old woman, what's her name, whatever her name is, that skinny
Marcia?
woman, and then there's a new
Oh no,
woman
no,
too, a younger
Rhea.
woman. Yeah, there's Rhea, but there's he's sleeping with another woman. They heavily imply it's never proven. Near the end of season 3. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't.
the black haired assistant, and like he shows her a
Oh yeah,
meme at
yeah. I
some
don't
point,
remember
and
her
they're like,
name.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're supposed to think, yeah, he's sleeping with her too. Um, and
Oh,
so
so
yeah, I mean
the
it's the idea that like the conservatives, like the conservative, quote unquote conservatives, I mean they're really non ideological, are sort of in it for business and family stuff and normal stuff and to make money, and sort of the liberals are sort of trying to cultivate some kind of image to themselves of like being above it all, right? And that's like everything from like not divorcing you, not trading away your wife, that's to collecting degrees and like worthless subjects, to having sort of an understated manner and understated fashion, and but also
shabby
like
chic. The
But
New
also
Yorker
even like the
called
way
their
you like
fashion
even
shabby chic.
yeah, but even like your journalism, like your journal, like they're the kind of people who like don't care if they don't sell as many papers. Like they could do more sensationalist stuff, but they want to do like ProPublica kind of stuff, like reporting on what's going on. So they're not like which you think you see like with the Roys, you think whatever like is going to make the most money, they would run with whatever works there. Um, and so this is I mean this is elite conservatism and this is elite liberalism. I think in exaggerated form, and I think that episode is just a beautiful it's just a beautiful demonstration of it.
Yeah. So the Roys care about basically the bottom
Isn't one of
line,
them in
and which
the?
is what
Is it?
Logan says, right? He says,
Is it?
"Take the fucking money." That's his favorite Shakespeare quote.
Yeah. Isn't Connors? He has a sparring partner in the Pierce family. I think that guy is like at Brookings Institution.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's right.
and
It's the
so
Brookings
like
guy.
like it's like insider versus so like Connor is like a libertarian like independent like kind of guy trying to run for president, and like the Brookings Institution is like the most establishment like Washington D.C. think tank you could get to, right? So this too is like this is another kind of job that like somebody in their world would do, that somebody in the Roy family would not.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I can't imagine any of the Roy kids working at a think tank and doing that kind of work, or doing a PhD, right? Like any of this kind of like intellectual, like financially unprofitable kind of work, like they wouldn't be interested in it. It seems like, yeah, I mean, caring about money is kind of vulgar to old money families, to blue-blooded families. Like doing something specifically for money rather than for some kind of higher social cause.
Yeah.
um yeah, that is definitely like a distinction between the families that they made. I think, like, yeah, that episode did a very good job of sort of just like characterizing it. I mean, there was another difference too, where so her name Nan Pierce.
Uh-huh.
Remember early in the episode when they're I think they're having hors d'oeuvres and drinks or something, and Nan Pierce pulls one of the waitresses, the servers aside, and it was like, oh, you should take the day off.
Yeah.
You work so hard. Like, but she knows full well that like you can't take a day off when you're like hosting this other rich family.
Yeah.
Like that's a
Yeah.
day when you would definitely have to be at work. But
Right.
she's trying to like be this magnanimous, like kind, make this gesture. Whereas like I think Logan, when he speaks to his underlings or any of the Roy kids, like it's a more honest, it's more honesty when they speak with their underlings, right? Is just like
Yeah.
very direct,
Or
very
even like
blunt.
waiters
There's
and
none of
stuff. You
this like
remember
kind
when?
of pretending to be
Yeah.
nice.
You remember when Rome tried to like he's told those like that Mexican family like if they hit a home run he'd give them like $1 million or something.
With the check, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Right.
remember that. That
Yeah. That's
wasn't okay. So that was an odd episode. I don't know what they were trying to do there, because that was the pilot episode of the series. But when the boy failed and Roman rips up the check in front of him, and then Logan gives the family the watch, and he shakes the boy's hand and says, "Magnificent effort." And I saw that it was the first episode, so I'm like, okay, so they're, are they trying to make Logan into like a nice guy, or like is he what? But then he
I
never
think
really shows any
he's nicer
other.
than Rome. I mean, I think he's nicer than Rome. Yeah, I don't remember
You
the
think
part about
so?
him giving that watch. Okay, he gives him the watch, and then he
And he
shakes
says
his hand and says,
magnificent effort to the boy,
"The
shakes his
watch is a
hand,
nice
and
watch,
like,
right? It's pretty valuable, right?"
yeah. And the watch, I mean, I get that the watch doesn't mean anything to Logan, and like he'll just give it away, that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way that he shook his hand and like was very respectful to this boy, and I thought like, okay, that's, in hindsight, that's kind of, I don't really see Logan behaving that way. But I guess Logan to me is kind of an inscrutable character, because um the way that Logan, so I mean, we're sort of bouncing around here, but when Tom offered to take the fall for Logan and go to prison, and then it ended up not happening, and Logan like pats him on the back and says, "I'll remember." And I found that interesting too, that Logan would basically like say like, "Yeah, you can bank this favor with me." Uh because like Logan, he's such like this sort of cold figure that,
Wouldn't a cold figure like want to reward someone for doing something and like
I
have
don't
a
know, because
that
in
makes
other
sense for him.
instances he says like, he values sort of cunning and ruthlessness and ambition. And so I could imagine another version of Logan Roy where like someone offers to go to prison for him, and he thinks like, like what a like not coward,
Yeah,
but
but
like
his ambition
what a
should
sort
be
of weak thing to do.
but Logan's ambition should be to reward people who do that for him, right? Even if he thinks they're like contemptible or whatever, he himself should. I mean, he should want that. He should have contempt for people who do it for other people. and then probably
Mm.
like people who do it. So like, it's like Trump. I mean, it's like Trump loves like people who are loyal. He'll still screw them, but like he's like he thinks that he's still like will try to reward them or do things for them if they do things for him.
It's sort of tit
But
for
like,
tat. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
so
in a way, it makes sense because Logan couldn't have got to where he is without at least like having that sort of sense of reciprocation for
of course, yeah.
favors and sort of building relationships with people. So
And
yeah, I mean,
then
we seldom get to see that side
he's
of him
nice.
though.
He's nicer than Rome. I mean, clearly you're supposed to get that. Rome is like a Caligula kind of figure.
Yeah.
Um,
Although they kind of soften his edges later on in the series, which I didn't really, I had mixed feelings
they,
about. I don't know if I
they
liked that
sort
ending,
of
but
do, but do they really? What does he do that's like you know what? No, you know what he does though. He does whenever they're making jokes like, "Oh, Dad's gonna die," ha ha ha. He's like, "That's not cool," right? He does have like
yeah,
this worshipful attitude towards his dad. He does have a loyalty to
yeah,
his dad, right? Um, and so he does have that, and then this is another thing about the Roy family. They're high on like they have some kind of ethics within the family, except like Logan sort of doesn't. I think he really hates Kendall. I think he treats Kendall the worst, and I think he hates Kendall because he's a drug addict. I think this gets to him, and like he
mm.
does, like so he wants Kendall to take the blame because he just doesn't care about Kendall because like he's a firstborn and he's like a drug addict and like he's
Well,
insecure and like
he's
sort of.
not the firstborn. Remember, Connor.
Oh
Connor
yeah, Connor's
made
yeah,
that
but he
very
doesn't. It
clear.
doesn't count. Yes, he's like not
I'm the
even like worthy.
firstborn son.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's not even worth thinking about. He has a different mom, right? Connor's mom is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He has an older
Yeah,
mom.
we never. So
Yeah,
he has had three wives then, not two. He had Connor's, and then
yeah.
the other
Well,
one's
at least
Marcia.
three. Maybe there are some even early. Like
Yeah,
I could. Well, I don't think Succession would do this, but like, it's possible, right? That like later on we'll find out that he had a wife way before, and he has another,
or he could
another
divorce.
set
Yeah,
of kids.
yeah, he could
We don't
divorce
really.
he couldn't divorce this current wife was good. Yeah, was pretty old and find someone else too.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I mean, I thought that like well, each season, the way that they structured it, it seemed like there was like each episode is centered on a different potential successor. So season one was basically Kendall trying to overthrow Logan and basically like fulfill the I guess the deal that had been arranged before where he would succeed his dad until his dad pulled out at the last minute. I love that episode in the boardroom where like Kendall is like sprinting to the office. He's on the phone, he's trying to like persuade everyone to go
Yeah,
along with voting him out, and Logan is in the room refusing to leave and like basically bullying everyone and forcing them to cower before him. Was just like, I mean, that was like such a
yeah,
tense
like he
episode. I
had
thought
to
it
like
was
not
very
be there.
well
You know,
done.
I was reading a book. I was just reading a book for doing a podcast on it about the founding of PayPal. And when they wanted to push Elon Musk out as CEO, they waited till he was on his honeymoon because they said if Elon Musk is in the room, like he had to like go overseas because if Elon Musk was in the room, he was just gonna no matter what they said, he was gonna be able to talk everybody through the force of his personality into keeping him there. And so it was like that with Logan. It was like he
Mm.
couldn't like they had to like have everything lined up like right away. Like was he was there in the room. He was there in the room. But like if it was like uncertain, like he would like change it, right? And then it's Rome's vote at the end that keeps him there, right? Because that's just him exerting his will on
Yeah,
his son. And it depends on the time too. Like if Kendall had arrived earlier, right, it would have I think it would have been done, right? And then
I
like he's
think
like, oh,
so.
board. Yeah, he's like, and then he's like, yeah, but and then he's like, meeting dismissed. Like, you can't do this. Like, I don't care. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm not following the rules. I don't.
It was
Yeah,
yeah, it was
but
unreal, and that he could see, right? Like, he wasn't supposed to be in the room to see who voted which way, but he was there the whole
yeah, yeah.
time,
He's like, yeah,
and,
yeah,
like,
right.
of
He just
course,
like the
people
rules.
aren't
He just
gonna
doesn't care.
wanna they don't wanna be
Exactly.
they're not going to betray him to his face because of the sort of fearsome, reputation he's developed, and so, yeah, that was sort of the theme of season 1 is, like, will Kendall be able to prevail here? And then season 2 was basically centered on Shiv, being the potential successor, right? Because Logan, makes this false promise to her that, oh, if you leave this Democrat politician you're working for, I'll make sure that you're next in line. I'll groom you for it.
Yeah.
Basically trying to, they were both sort of playing each other. I thought Shiv was working for him as a way to sort of, stick it to her father, and then the father, Logan, was basically promising her the top spot as a way to lure her away from his political adversary. Because it looked bad for Logan to have a daughter who was working for someone who's like an open and publicly avowed enemy of the Roy family and of ATN and everything. So but like, yeah, that was an interesting move too. And I was kind of, I don't know, like the kids are kind of, they're very like socially savvy and very cunning and ambitious, but I'm repeatedly surprised at how frequently they fall for their father's manipulations, because they're aware that that's who he is and they still fall
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess the
like
reward that
Shiv didn't
he's
get anything in writing. She just like took Logan at his word and like quit her job. That was very,
well, I mean,
yeah,
well,
that
yeah,
didn't
but
feel
Kendall
great.
Kendall eventually does wise up, right? He doesn't just keep doing it. Eventually, I guess when he's
That's
going to go to
well, all
jail.
of the kids at the end of season 3 finally get it. Um, and so yeah, I mean, Shiv kind of like
How
understands
did
and
season three
realizes
end?
that, yeah.
I can't believe I don't remember this. It was very memorable. Were they gonna move against him? Was that what was happening?
The end of season 3, yeah, that was the plan, and then they all, agree that they're going to vote the father out, and then Tom betrays Shiv, and
Yes.
then Logan basically was able to renegotiate the terms of the divorce with the mother, and basically remove like the board seats from the kids, so that they couldn't vote him out and change his
Yes.
his
So
deal with
yes,
with
yes,
JoJo.
Tom. Yeah, I can't believe how bad my memory is. This just ended a few months ago, and
Yeah,
yeah, I don't. I remember being struck
it
by
was
the last
a
episode,
it was
but
very good. I had to watch that scene again because it was so like masterfully done, and the way Logan mocks his own children, like
yeah,
he's yeah,
yeah.
Brian
And so,
Cox, man, he was
they're
great.
not like it's like he's holding out like a. I mean, I don't think it's that weird because he's holding out like a big reward, right? And they know he's gonna pass soon. And it's like Shiv is looking around. It's like Kendall's on drugs, and like Rome is like Rome is Rome, and then Rome is
Yeah.
thinking like, oh no, all I have to do is like get past Shiv, right? He doesn't, for whatever however that's done. So it's like it's none of them like each of them has like a 33% or a 50% chance from their perspective, and like the reward is potentially huge. So it's like they're playing. I think the hand that they're being dealt. I don't think it's like strange that they're like buying into it, right? Because what else are they going to do? They know they're in a very fortunate situation.
Well, I mean, at the least, wouldn't it be possible to get something in writing rather than just like the dad saying, like, I'll make sure that you're next
Yeah,
in
but he
line,
won't.
or I'll take care of you.
Yeah,
Well, I
but he
guess like
won't do
Kendall
that.
did technically have it in
I mean,
writing, and then the dad
I
sort
don't
of,
know if that's even enforceable. Can you write a contract saying I'm gonna like keep it from the board? I'm gonna make you
I
CEO.
don't
I don't
know.
know if
Like,
that's
there's
even
got to
like.
be some. Yeah, it just seemed like there could be something they could do besides just accepting it and taking him at his word. Um,
I
but I
don't
mean,
think.
like,
Yeah.
anyway, like, I guess it sort of is supposed to fit with the general theme of the show, which is that like, these kids are like raised by a monster, and like somehow they're still desperate for his affection, right? Like the mom in season 3, I forget her name, but yeah, the kid's mom says, Logan likes to kick people just to see whether they'll come crawling back.
Mm.
And that's sort of what he does with the kids, right? He sort of like treats them horribly, but then like you'll see him 2 scenes later like praising the kid, or he'll like use the divide and conquer methods of like, when they all ambush him in the season 3 finale. He asks Rome to remove Kendall from the room. He's like, oh, I don't like him looking at me, like, because Kendall is still sort of the black sheep of the family. He's the drug addict, and he betrayed his dad, and he's like trying to get Rome to remove him, and like the whole thing is like, you know it's interesting, the whole like
Yeah.
dynamic there, and they're aware of it but still go along with it. The mom is a mess too. It's just yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love the thing
Interesting.
when Kendall like wants to talk to his mom, and then she just like leaves. She ditches him.
Oh yeah, yeah, she says we'll talk about this in the morning over an egg,
And then
and
she's
then
like, yeah,
like,
and then
yeah,
she
she
writes
just
like a letter.
vanishes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did he want to talk to her about? Oh, he wanted to tell her about the how he killed the kid, right? He was
Yeah,
gonna do
killing
it.
the
And,
kid. I thought that
yeah,
was, oh, I forgot. Yeah, yeah, that was such
I
a
mean, there's two
great
ways to
like.
look at this, and there's two ways to look at this. It's like there's the modern like liberal interpretation, which is probably the correct one. That's probably what they're going for, what the producers are going for. It's like these people are repressed, and they should like talk about their feelings, and like they shouldn't like be mean to each other, and then like everyone will be like better. And then there's like and then there's like this thing where it's like you're also, and and I don't think it's ridiculous to think this is what they're doing too. It's like Logan, is like Logan's like the old people were just tougher, and they didn't need like they didn't have all these problems, right? And sometimes you get this when Logan goes off on Kendall and like what a weak guy he is and how he had nothing, and like he never like got into drugs or anything like that, right? You see this perspective too, right? So it's like a very yeah, I think this is like a conservative versus liberal interpretation.
Yeah.
It's like you want the therapeutic sort of, everyone holding hands and loving each other and expressing their feelings. You could take that as like what people should be doing, or you could take it as like, people have become wimps, and like old, the previous generations just like were better and healthier.
Well, they explicitly Logan comments on this too, that like Kendall says like you're jealous of your own kids, basically. Like I think yeah, this is also supposed to be some kind of like an aspect of Logan's character is that he, because he straight up says like I gave you kids too much and now you're all ruined basically. Like he acknowledges like he spoiled them and that's part of why they are the way they are. And then Kendall says like, you're jealous of your own kids for like how good their lives were compared to his. But it's like it's interesting, right? Because like I think in terms of the politics, like both like conservatives, I think would agree that like you can spoil your kids and turn them into whatever, like overgrown children who never mature because kids
Yeah.
need toughness, they need discipline and whatever. Like they need to struggle in their lives a little. And liberals, just generally don't like rich people. So like, yeah, they'll agree that like these kids were spoiled and privileged and whatever. And so in that sense, like that kind of unifies them that like, yeah, like these rich kids, yeah, they had it too good somehow. Um, and that may be like why they are the way that they are.
Yeah, is that what
And
liberal? I mean, is that what liberals would say, or they would say like because they weren't like, they didn't like talk to them about their, like, they had good things, but like they didn't talk about their emotions enough. Like if they just like had, I don't think
yeah,
liberals think like
okay,
no matter
yeah,
if
yeah.
you're rich, no matter what happens, you're going to be screwed up. I don't think they uh think that. And then like, the conservative perspective is like often like people have it. Yeah, I mean that's like more of a conservative thing. Just if you have it too good, no matter what, like that's just human
Yeah.
nature, right? Um,
Yeah.
and you're
Okay,
weak
yeah, so
because
it's like a repression thing. Like the reason why
yeah.
the kids are the way they are isn't because of the
Yeah, that
wealth,
would
it's
be like a
because of
liberal interpretation, right? Yeah,
the emotional
exactly.
poverty of it.
Uh,
Okay, yeah, yeah,
and
I can buy that too. I think either
there's but
way, but
there's such a good quote from Logan where I really thought the show was right wing because he had like this rant that was so uh he had this rant, like let me see, it was partly, it was the let's see here, so it's like, yeah, I wish I could find this, but it was so good. It was something, just something about people being weak and like, what's happening to this country. Uh,
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It's
no, no,
all
no.
what did
Oh,
he
when he
say?
talks about, one of the things is when he talks about like his show, like his network. He's like, we don't condescend to people. We don't tell them what they should think. We're trying to provide them some news and provide them some entertainment. So it's like he gives a defense of like the Fox News model, right? Which is
Yeah.
like, it's not something you see all the time, right? And then you have like, this is what's good about the show. It's like you do have like these perspectives, and then you have like his brother Ewan is like, global warming is going to kill us all, and you're responsible, right? So you have like that liberal perspective, like what you're doing is so irresponsible and evil, right? But then you do have this thing like these liberals are just like always condescending to people. They think they're better. They're not that great. Like you talked about that Pierce, that disingenuous thing where she tries to let the, tells the lady she can go home. And so there's like this populist sort of like critique of liberals and elites,
Yeah.
that
Well, this
is
happens
not complete.
multiple times that like well that
Yeah,
the scene you're describing is when he's talking with the Bernie Sanders stand-in where
yeah,
he's he says like, I understand people. Like, if I didn't
yeah,
understand people, then I wouldn't be able to make my
yeah,
nut. Like I wouldn't be able to,
yeah.
be as wealthy as I am
Yeah,
because
or when
yeah,
Gil,
we
I
we
like
have
when Gil said,
we have empathy.
I taught economics. He's like, oh, you don't have to explain capitalism to me. He's like, where, like a kindergarten or something like that. It was
Oh
very
yeah,
funny.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, you taught in kindergarten. That was good. I mean, like, yeah, it's yeah, and the other sort of what lesson from Logan's philosophy was when he was talking to Lucas Matson when they were negotiating the deal with Gojo. And yeah, I can't remember like what preceded this, but basically Logan said that like, but when I first came to America, I thought of like, as the land of like milk and gold and you can make something yourself. And now like everyone's just like soft and weak and
Yeah,
everyone's like what was it like like either too fat or too skinny from meth or yoga. And yeah, yeah, and he was like, what's become of this country, and it's he kind of trails off from there, but like yeah, he's it's he gives voice to the concerns of a lot of people. I think not even necessarily older generation. I think younger people are kind of sensing the sort of spiritual
yeah. You know what? You know
decline.
what? You know one scene I really liked. I think you'll like this too. When Rome accidentally sends his dick pic to Logan, and then
That scene
they're
was incredible.
yeah, and they're talking about it afterwards, and like he's like, "What are you like?" Sonny's like trying to get him to explain himself, and he's like, it's a dick pic. Do you know what that is?" He's like, yes, I run like all these tabloids. I think we probably invented the term. So it's like you
Yeah,
think this old guy is like out of touch, like doesn't know anything, but like no,
yeah,
he invented the thing that like everyone is doing and everyone is talking about. I thought this was like this
yeah,
cool thing, like between the generations. Like it's not like he doesn't know anything about your world. Like he gets it. He helped create it actually, and he
yeah.
still sort of gets it. And you're not gonna like get out of it, but based on just the idea that you don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, and he handled it surprisingly. I don't want to say handled it well, but he handled it in a very like, like he was just like, "What the fuck is this? Like, just explain yourself. What's wrong with you?" And then
Yeah,
like later, he asks like, "What is it? Is it all screens are up the ass with you? Like, what's wrong with you? Why can't?" He said like, "Do you need to get yourself straightened out? Like,
yeah,
don't tell me." He said like, "Don't tell me. I don't want to know. Like, whatever your sexual proclivities are."
yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, that whole season three kind of like yeah. Shiv, I thought was like kind of the potential successor of season two, and then for season three, I think they tried to frame it around Roman. He was sort of more of a protagonist in season three, but then like he failed too, and there were like a couple of interesting moments with him where like when
Didn't he succeed?
Roman
Did he fail? Where did he fail? What it was it that he was? I thought he was doing good until the
It
dick
was
pic. I
with
think.
Gojo. So what happened with Lucas Matson, right? Like the tech guy. So
Oh,
Roman meets up with Lucas Matson at his like, his villa or whatever on his island.
yeah,
And like the first thing he says is nice place. And Lucas says something about like, yeah, it's nice, but I'm not really happy or something like that. And then later when Logan shows up, so Logan and Roman both show up to meet with Lucas Matson, and they start talking, and Logan like says something like, "What, you want me to tell you how nice your place is? Like I don't do that shit," something like that. And I think like Lucas respects him for that. Like, Roman was trying to flatter him, but Logan just cuts right to the chase. And then later when they're negotiating, Lucas makes this like gesture to like to Logan to like tell Roman to go away, basically like, I
mhm,
don't want him like around when we're negotiating this
yeah,
deal. And then I think at that point, Logan kind of accepts that, like, yeah, Roman doesn't really have it either. I
yeah.
mean,
I think. I
multiple
mean, I think
times
like
throughout.
I think you can see why the kids are like, why he's not handing it over to these kids because they're not as good as him at
They're
this
not
thing.
they're
Like
not business savvy like him. I
exactly.
mean, Kendall probably comes the closest, but he's an addict and he's like very
Yeah.
like, he's just
I think
brooding
Rome
and
comes the closest actually. Rome has problems, but like in his instincts and his ability to deal with people and read people. Like Kendall, and so like I think he's like leaning toward I think he wants it to be Rome. I think he thinks, Shiv he's gotta string along. Um but she's like, okay, maybe she'll be like upper management or whatever. But he thinks Rome like has this ability to read people, has the vision, but he's got problems. He's a pervert, and
yeah,
he's sometimes lazy and
but a weird pervert,
irresponsible.
right? He can't have sex. Like there's the whole like subplot with him and
Yeah, we should talk about
the
we should
girlfriend
talk
who
about
never fucks.
yeah, we should talk
Yeah,
about that. But I think that like he sees like Rome as like Kendall is like I think he's such a great character because he's such a like try hard. You can see like why he's addicted to drugs. Like he is like, he's listening
he's
to hip
strung
hop
very
and like
tight.
yeah, he's strung very tight, but there is a deep, deep insecurity in him. Like even Rome is like supposed to have problems, but Rome knows who he is and like is comfortable with these. I think even beyond, like maybe he has some weird sexual things, definitely, but like he, in his day to day life, seems more at peace with himself, a lot more than Kendall, who just seems to just have these weaknesses and this desperation to be
Well,
liked.
okay, to be fair, like I mean Kendall, I mean of course all of those things are true, but I mean Kendall was also, especially in season 2 and to some extent in season 3, like dealing with like killing the waiter and like covering it up. I think like,
But he
because
was
part
all
of season
just
1 was like him trying to like basically take the company from his father, and then he was weak, right? Like he went to his father for help to cover up this crime, and now he's sort of indebted to this man that he hates. So like
yeah,
so not only did he kill someone, but now he's sort of like, was like this sort of pathetic figure who had to go to his daddy for help,
yeah,
and now he
and
has
he's
to work for
broken.
this man,
He's
and he's broken, and then like yeah, there was just like a string of events that made Kendall like, because I thought season one Kendall was like, he was a different guy. I thought like more, kind of confident, and I mean he did like risk it all to get his dad out of there. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
He's
yeah,
a,
yeah.
yeah,
But
he's
you
yeah,
can
so
kind of
yeah,
understand
you're
him.
right. That's a very good point. So yeah, he is different. He is broken after that event. But he did, I mean, there are things in the past, like he did have, drug issues before. And
Yeah,
the way he reacted, even the way he reacted, like the fact that he was like so broken, like after, like I think if Logan accidentally kills somebody, I think he moves on. I think Logan at any age, like kills someone and like doesn't care, even if he has to like submit
yeah.
and like has to like
Well,
if it's
I'm curious about like the dynamic was like growing up. I mean, they frequently hint at it, but like there was that scene, I can't remember, season two, I think, where Logan is like enraged and punches Roman in the face. Remember, he loses a tooth, and then Kendall jumps in and like basically stands between them and like yells at Logan, like, "Don't do like, no, you don't do that." And it was so like instinctual and automatic that like you get this sense that like this probably happened when they were kids, where like Kendall felt like he had to protect Roman from like the dad's outbursts, right? Because like,
yeah.
and Logan did it with such like no hesitation whatsoever, just like boom, like cracks Roman, and like causes him to lose a tooth, knocks a tooth out. So like yeah, the dad was like, Logan was a force to be reckoned with when they were kids. And I think like Roman is terrified, right? And I think like that may be like one reason why Logan doesn't fully respect him. I mean, there was that I think in season one, like they talked about, like Logan made this I don't know, he made this statement, something like, when you have two dogs, let them fight, and then the loser you send away. And
Yeah.
this was supposed to be about Roman being sent off to some kind of like boarding school or some kind of like, academy away from home. And also like that running joke during, I think it was Tom's bachelor party, where Roman accused Kendall of locking him in a dog cage and
Yeah.
feeding him dog food. But then, Kendall was like, well, it wasn't dog food. It was, whatever. It was regular food. And you asked me to lock you in that cage. And so there was like clearly some weird dynamics going on when they were kids. Um, they don't really get into what happened with,
And
yeah.
Connor says you liked it. Doesn't he tell Roman like you wanted
Oh,
that?
Connor says you liked it. That's right. And then there were those the other stories about like Connor having to like take them out camping because their father wouldn't. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like I think all of this is supposed to be like, sprinkled throughout the show to give us some glimpse into like their early life and what Logan used to be like. But
Yeah.
but
Well,
yeah,
he
man,
was
the
yeah.
punching scene was pretty wild. Like I did not expect Logan to just like, I mean, some of the older generation, they hit their kids, but like literally punching
Yeah.
your son in the mouth and was really something, especially that 80-year-old man, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's pugnacious. I love the
Pugnacious.
Logan character. This is what gives it a sort of right wing like flavor because like despite all the other stuff, it's like Logan is clearly the star of the show. Like none of the characters, like he's not gonna die before the show's over. Like when he was like on death's door in the beginning of the show, it's like he's not going anywhere because he's just the best character by far. Like he's the star, and I think you're gonna. It's not like he's gonna die and then like Kendall's gonna carry the show or something like that, right? I hope they don't do that. If it goes long enough, maybe. But I think and I
I
think
don't
that like
think, yeah.
yeah, and
Well,
I
what I
think
see
Tom
happening
is
is
a
season four. It'll be about Tom, I think, right? Because well, Tom is the one who betrayed Shiv,
yeah
and made this alliance. I mean, like towards, remember, so Kendall invites Tom out for dinner or something, trying to like lure Tom away to join his side to help betray
yeah
Logan.
right
And Tom says like, I think you're gonna get fucked because I see you get fucked repeatedly and I've never seen
yeah
Logan get fucked once. And
yeah
so that was like a foreshadowing. And I think season four is gonna be like Tom thinking he's going to be Logan's successor, but will ultimately fail. I think that's kind of the dynamic of the show. But I'm
so
not
he would have to
and
would he
then season five will be Greg. This is just my sort of like uninformed speculation, but like four will be about Tom failing to succeed, and then Greg is going to be season five, and I don't know,
yeah
maybe
I
somehow
didn't see
like
it the way I
plot
didn't
twist he'll
to me
succeed.
To me, they sort of blended together the seasons. I didn't see it like you, where like each one was one of them. Like that was how does season two end? Uh,
Season 2 ends
maybe you're
with
right.
Kendall saying, like,
Oh
basically
yes, yes,
refusing to
yes.
take the blame
Oh yeah,
for
so Kendall
the.
is gone, right? And so Kendall is like out of the running, and it's got to be Shiv, right? And it's funny, his wife, Logan's wife, Marsha, like you thought in the first few episodes, like she would be a big deal, like because they're like, oh, they're doing background checks on her, like who is this woman? Like you think she's going to be a
Oh,
force,
right.
and
I
then like
forgot about that.
nothing happens for 3 seasons. 3 seasons, she's just completely in the background, and you wonder if they're going to pick this up, or maybe she's just not that good of a character, and they're never going to do anything with her again, right? It seemed like they were going
Mm.
in that direction, but then like decided not to or something.
Yeah, I remember especially her and Shiv, they seem to have like
Yeah.
this, this kind of like adversarial dynamic. And yeah, and then I think, did they divorce already? I don't even remember because, yeah,
No,
she was such
I'm pretty
a.
sure that no, they didn't divorce. They were.
They didn't
I
divorce
think they're
because,
still
like, there
fine.
were
I think they're
jokes
still
about
together. They
Logan
have.
hooking
Yeah,
up with his
he
assistant.
basically cheats on. Yeah, he cheats on her. I mean, she knows it, but like, I don't think they divorced her.
She sort of, yeah, just deals with it.
Yeah, and so I think she's yeah, I don't think she's a good character, honestly. I think she's I don't think I think Tom like I think when the show started, I don't think Tom was going to be that important. I think Greg was always going to be important. He was like the viewer, like the viewer's eye. I think
Yeah.
Tom there's why I have a anonymous guy response to me, one of my reply guys on Twitter. His name is Tom whatever. What's the guy Tom's Weisbacher or something?
Wamsgans.
Yeah, that's like his name, and he has Tom's picture, and it's like so. Tom's like interesting enough that anons on Twitter who like reply to me are like making him their avatar, which he doesn't
Tom's the
happen for.
outsider, man. The ambitious outsider. Greg is not the ambitious. He's sort of the opposite. Like, Greg is sort of like this kind of like manages to hang around and hang on the edges, but Tom is like ambitious.
Yeah, isn't it
And
funny when Tom is trying to get Shiv pregnant to like as a guarantee that she'll stay like it'll hobble her enough like handicap her so he can go to jail and like come out and she'll like still be with him. Did you see that?
well, I mean, was it that? I thought it was basically like so that he would still have like a confirmed connection to the family,
Yeah, I think
right?
that's right. Yeah, so she'll still be
Yeah.
with it, right? Yeah, so yeah, she won't
Or
like
it could be like what you're saying, right? Because he's probably aware that she would cheat on him, and if she was pregnant, then maybe she would be less appealing to,
I think but
you
I think
know.
he knows she would still cheat on him. That's like
Yeah,
he's like
that's true.
she would, but like she would still have to stick with him. I guess is the and like it's a commitment thing. Like she's not going to toss him aside. Like they have like she's put something into the marriage, which like
Yeah.
they weren't. And like yeah,
Is
she
this
just starts talking
also
about
like Tom himself is
freezing.
kind of more of a right wing figure too? Remember, like when they're sitting on the beach, season 2 finale, and Shiv, like he basically like says to Shiv, like, I can't believe you wanted to be in an open marriage. I'm not a hippie.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
But
not a
he's
hippie.
a conservative. He's a conservative. He
He's a
accepts it because he can't get any right because he's just
Well,
so
is he?
desperate
Oh
to
yeah,
get
he is
short.
kind of a okay in the fact that he's married
He
to
accepts
Shiv,
it.
but he makes these
He doesn't like
these
it,
kind
but
of
he doesn't.
comments, right? Well, he's the head of
Yeah, he doesn't like it.
ATN.
He doesn't like it, right? But
He does, yeah.
he deals with it as
He deals
the
with it for power, right?
exactly. So he's yeah. So
Well, he also
yeah.
made the joke about Hamilton. Remember, like when they're all at that Republican
Hamilton,
private
yes,
dinner, and Greg says like something something, and Tom is like, "Oh, you this is a safe space. You don't have to pretend you liked Hamilton here." And then Greg says, "I
yes.
liked Hamilton."
And
Oh, we all wilted.
another thing about Tom is when they're all freaking out about that guy on the network, he's supposed to be like Tucker Carlson, right? He's supposed to be somebody like Tucker, like where he has like the right wing host. No, you don't think so?
Wait, which guy is this?
The right wing talk show host, the one who they said got married in Hitler's
Oh, is that
Wolfsburg.
Tucker Carlson? I didn't. Yeah, I didn't
It's got to
realize.
be
But
Tucker
yeah, I guess that makes
Carlson.
sense.
But like
Okay.
a more extreme Tucker Carlson. It's like a mix between Tucker Carlson and some like alt right provocateur, right? So it's like
Okay.
somebody who like I think this is the way like liberals see Tucker is like flirts with white nationals. Like Tucker doesn't really like the stuff this guy's like into like Nazism and stuff, which is like different, but it's like an exaggerated version of how liberals. It was so funny. It's like, oh, you named your dog Blondie, like Hitler's dog, and he's like, oh yeah, well, it's spelled different. And that was pretty
It's
funny.
spelled
But
different. Yeah. Oh, I
yeah,
forgot about that. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that
But
was interesting.
he's like, I keep going. He's like, I keep like, have you ever read Mein Kampf? So Tom is like auditing him to see if he's like a Nazi. He's like, have you ever read Mein Kampf? He's like, yes. He's like, I'm into the war, Second World War. He's like, why? And he's like, the magnitude. It's
The
like very funny.
magnitude, yeah, yeah.
And he's like, and but Tom is like least bothered by it. Like he talks to Greg. You see that one thing where he's like, Tom's like, this is about Nazis. Nazis are bad, right? Like to Greg, like he doesn't even like know or care enough. And Greg is like, yes,
Mhm.
Nazis are bad, right? And like
Yeah,
Tom's
yeah, yeah.
like,
We all hate Nazis, Greg.
yes. He's like either like so right wing or like so indifferent that like he can't even process like other people being mad at
Well,
like
it's
the
an
wings
interesting thing
himself.
that like indifference codes as right wing somehow. Like just not being ideological and just taking like this neutral position of like I just want like whatever is, like Jerry's line, what is best for my self interest. Like that just codes as right wing, right? It's like I don't really
Yeah.
care about ideology. I don't really care about this or that or relationships. I'm just trying to do like what will maximize my own odds of success, and that in itself is kind of like this, right wing or
Well,
conservative
it's like
view of
any
the
regime
world.
with like a dominant, yeah, any regime with a dominant ideology, like not being like really into the ideology is itself like an ideology, right? So if you're like in North Korea and you're like, I don't like Kim Jong Un, like that's like very political. If you're indifferent towards Kim Jong Un, right, that's very political. So it's like when like
Okay,
our
I see what you're
society
saying.
where like every
Yeah.
corporation and every like like every every and it's like the and like you have to be a little bit political to like even resist this stuff because it's like everyone's instinct is like Tom is like so it's interesting. So Tom is always like risk averse, self preservation, this and that. But this Tucker guy, like this Nazi guy, he's like he just doesn't get it or like doesn't care, and he's more willing to like he thinks Nazis are bad, but he's like not going to go root it out. Like he's not going to go make sure like everyone is ideologically correct on the network. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so
But
there's that.
with ATN though, it is interesting that like they will make these like snide, like kind of tongue in cheek remarks about how ATN like you know uh whatever like promotes hate or spews hate or like someone it might have been Shiv called it the bigot spigot. Um,
uh,
and so I think they're all kind of aware, like Tom himself too, that like, yeah, they push things that are kind of like edgy or whatever. Like they don't agree with it, right? Like they don't really, they're not, yeah, I guess, yeah, they're not ideological. They don't really care. They're not necessarily agreeing with it. They're just like doing what sells, right? Selling to the
yeah.
public what they
Logan,
want.
I think Logan, I think agrees with it.
Mm.
Like I think
Oh, you think
Logan, like
Logan is on board with what ATN? Oh yeah, yeah. He made that joke about like, something about like this gender bender bullshit, something like that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and he's made a couple of like racial remarks, right?
Yeah,
Like,
he called Rome a faggot at one point, right, or a fag at
oh,
some point, right?
oh yeah, yeah. Well, he's made a couple of different like gauge. Oh, like Kendall, right? Like Kendall in one of the early episodes of season one, Kendall had some kind of idea for like an app or something, and Logan was like, "Oh, are you going to tell me about your gay little website?"
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. So yeah, I
yeah,
think
so
like
he's like
I think
casually racist, casually homophobic. Like, so maybe
yeah,
to some degree, ATN reflects his worldview or whatever. But it seems like
right.
the kids are kind of just doing whatever whatever's in their own self
Although
interest.
it's fascinating when they go to the Republican thing, whatever, where they're picking the next president, and they each have their own. And Shiv picks like this guy who's Marco Rubio. This guy's supposed to be Marco Rubio because or somebody like that because he's Hispanic
Oh, the
and like
brown man.
yeah, the brown man.
Well, that's what Roman called him. Something like, "Oh, you
Yeah,
like, oh, like you. Of course, you would support the brown man or something like that."
yeah. And so so he's like she's like trying to be GOP more establishment. At one point she says like about this other guy. He's like, "Oh, come on, he's a neocon pretending to be a paleocon." I said, "All right, this show's getting a little bit too cute." But it was like for it was very it would try to the people who made the show. I mean, knew something about American politics and these sort of divisions. So the guy that Rome likes,
In
he's like
conservative
this.
politics.
Yeah, exactly. So like they know these divisions, right? You have like this Marco Rubio type, who's like Republican establishment. You have that other guy, the president is actually the president says he's not going to run again. The president, we never see the president. Like we're supposed to think, is it Trump? Like I think we're supposed to think that. Like is it Trump or is it like a Trump? Because you don't see him. The vice president does seem like Pence because he's just like a white hair old man who's just like there and like is just a generic like conservative politician, right? So like Pence
Hmm.
is there, who's like he's gonna try to run to be the successor to the president, who's Trump. But Trump doesn't but the president decided not to run again because people were saying mean things about him in the media, which is not what
Yeah.
Trump does, right? That made me think this is not supposed to be Trump, but it's always
Mm,
mysterious. They never say the president's name. They never show him.
mm.
He's there. He's
I
somebody
don't
you're
think
supposed
yeah, I don't think it's supposed to be I think it's just supposed to be, like, just some
generic
vague
Republican.
Republican president that Logan is close with.
Yeah,
But I don't
but
think
it's
it's
but
supposed
it's
to be that
so
close
it's
to
so
real
in the
people.
present moment that
Mm.
like Sanders, like Bernie Sanders is like in the Senate,
Oh, yeah.
right? So and he's
Yeah.
like running for president. So it's like such in the current moment that like you have to think what is and like Trump is like the perfection of like ATN. He's the perfection of like talk radio and cable news and this like this clickbait stuff. Like this is what he plays best. So the fact that Trump is not in the show is or is he? It's sort of a just a gaping hole. And like then there's this president guy who we never see. And I think you're supposed to be sitting there the whole time. And I love like wondering about this. Like, is it actually Trump? Is it like I don't know Chris Christie or Mitt Romney or something, right?
Yeah.
But then he doesn't run for reelection, and then it's like, oh wait a minute, it's not Trump, and they never make like jokes like oh like if it was like Trump, they would make like jokes about him behind his back, right? They would like talk about how funny it is, like this guy's president and how he acts,
Or they
but you
would
never
make
get
some,
like
like, offhanded comment, right? Like, you could easily imagine, like, Shiv saying, like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get lunch with Ivanka," right? Like some kind of, like,
no, I'm not saying
subtle comment like that.
it wouldn't literally be Trump, or maybe it would be,
Mm,
maybe it wouldn't be, it would
I
like
don't
he's
know.
not he wouldn't have a
Because
daughter
they
named
make
Martha.
references to other real world figures, right? Like, they've made references to Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah,
They've
but
made
not
references to, like,
politicians.
real
But
world
no,
people.
there's no Nancy Pelosi. There's no Mike Pence. There's no
Yeah.
politics. Like, because you can't have like a world with like a fake Bernie Sanders and like a real Chuck Schumer. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, Zuckerberg.
Who was that guy supposed to represent that Roman backs, right? Like, Shiv is very upset because she
Is
wanted
he
the other
supposed?
guy, and
I don't
then
think he's.
Roman
Yeah,
is hanging out with, like, this, is he, like, alt-right or something? This, like,
yeah. He's
I
like
forgot
alt.
this
He's like
guy's.
some combination of alt right and like Catholic. These integralist people.
Oh,
Um,
right.
yeah, I don't think there's any
He makes fun of
politician
National
who.
Review.
Yeah, exactly. So
He's
he's a representative of these intellectuals. He's not like there's not one
he
figure
reads
like maybe like
Plato, or he tells Shiv to read Plato.
yeah like somebody like Josh Hawley is like trying to be that guy, but he's not very good at it. So it's like sort of
Oh,
Josh Hawley's like
interesting. Okay, that
trying to
kind
be
of
like the sort of like the capture the energy of these people. But Josh Hawley is just very uncharismatic, while this guy is charismatic. Um, but this guy, so he has this scene where like Rome is trying to see like how extreme he is, and he's like and like the guy, whatever his name is like I want to include everybody, and Rome is like, does that does everybody mean like everybody? What about like immigrants or something like that? And then the guy's like, well, look. There's immigration is fine, but like it has to be at a pace that we can absorb, and like people are more likely to contribute to the common good. When they others look like themselves, that's just a fact of nature. So he's got
scientific
this like
fact. Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
Does
I
he say
remember that.
scientific fact? I don't know if he said. I don't know
I
if he
think
said that
so. I think he
because
says, like, he.
the scientific fact thing isn't okay. If that changes a lot because you have these Catholic people. Um, I don't know much about them, but they're on the right and they're into like whatever Catholic philosophy stuff, right? Like Adrian Vermeule, like people who like him, but like not like specifically him. He's not like involved in the conservative movement. But then you have like HBD, like white nationalism, which was sort of there in like 2015, 2016. There was like there was people were on the internet. They all got kicked off of the internet, and they would say something like, "This is a scientific fact," right? You have
Okay, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, supposedly this guy is like flirts with fascism, right? Like Shiv just straight up calls him a
yeah,
fascist. She freaks out, right? Because she's like, oh, like he's a threat to the American experiment or something, or the
yeah,
American Republic,
yeah, but
which is
and
like
it's so
very
yeah,
odd for
yeah.
like
Yeah,
any
so
of the
she
Roe
her
children to be
no, but it's not odd for
so impassioned about it.
it's not odd for shit because she's arguing for her own like perspective too. So like there's two ways to look at it.
Uh,
She's still like sort of a liberal, or then she's like she's not a liberal. She doesn't care about anything, but
does she
she's
care
trying
about
to win
America? Like, I don't
maybe,
know.
or
Or oh,
maybe
I
not.
see what you're saying. She's trying
But
to
she
win
tells herself
elections.
she tells herself she cares, and then
Yeah.
she like but it's her own interest to support Marco Rubio, the other
Because
the
you're
Hispanic guy.
saying that if Marco Rubio is the nominee, then the Democrat will have a better chance of winning.
No, 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 no. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying she cares about Shiv. She doesn't care about Democrats. She cares about Shiv. She cares
Oh,
about
I
her
see.
own
Okay.
prospects,
Yeah,
and she's
yeah.
trying to win a debate over like with Rome. Rome has this whatever this far right wing guy, um,
Mm.
and then so Shiv, like, it helps to say like this other guy is harmful to democracy and like he'll destroy everything, right? And then like, it makes sense for her to do that for her own interest. So like she can have her
Mm.
guy, right? So it's like it doesn't mean that like
But
she
but
actually
why is he
cares.
her guy though? Like, what's like? I don't know.
You
I
know,
just don't get like why
why
Shiv
is he
would
her guy?
care.
I mean, I think she probably. I mean, okay, so like if she has to choose a guy, right? She's gonna go
Mm.
like, she's gonna choose that
Like a
one,
more
right?
moderate,
Like it was inevitable that like Rome was gonna have a guy and like Shiv was gonna have a guy, right? And so like
I suppose. Did they end up settling? Did they choose? So they did. Logan chose Roman's guy, right? Like the far
yes, I
right
think
guy.
that's the fast. Yes, that's the facet. I
So
think
is he going
that's
to be the
true, right?
president? I wonder. Like that
Well,
might
he's gonna
make
run like
Succession an interesting show if like, they have this, pseudo fascist president who's close with Logan, who Logan
yeah.
basically crowns the king. If Logan like actually makes him, the
Yeah, I
president
remember. I
somehow.
remember this. Yeah, Logan doesn't he? Because he asks for a Coke. What was that scene? Where he
Oh
asks for a
right, there's the
Coke, and then
Coke scene.
one of them brings him a Coke, or one of them doesn't, and then uh he doesn't like the one who brings him a Coke, or he does like the one who brings him a Coke. Like one refuses to bring him a Coke. You know what I'm talking about?
Is that what it
Or like doesn't.
was?
Yes.
Oh, I don't remember if it was the yeah, I remember the scene, but I don't remember the significance of it.
Yeah, yeah. It was like let me
But
see
I
what
know
they
that it
did.
confirmed that it was the
All right. So he demanded
yeah.
that Pence, Boyer, who's the vice president. I'm just going to call these guys Pence, Rubio, and right wing guy. So Boyer, who is Pence, um, he
Oh
doesn't bring
right.
him the Coke,
I
uh,
remember that, yeah.
and then or does he choose him? Let's see. This is season 3. So the sorry, this is a this is important. Season this is important because this is not only for the show, but this is for the uh this is for the future of the show. Let's see. Yeah, I mean this is such like you can analyze it like for people into politics. This is
I'm sure
like
like someone on like what, like yeah, maybe actually National Review itself
oh
has
no, so
actually done like a
Boyer,
deep
the
dive.
Pence guy, actually does bring him a Coke. Uh,
Hmm.
do I, Okay, and then Salgado, I guess, is the Rubio-ish uh, guy. And the other guy is called Mencken. Wait, he's called Mencken? No way.
Oh,
So he's
Mencken,
like
right. Yeah, yeah.
he's
It's
called
Mencken,
Mencken.
yeah.
Yeah. So he's literally that's a little bit too on the nose to actually call him Mencken.
Why? Why is that too
You
on the
know
nose? What do you mean?
you don't know who H.L. Mencken was? Well, H.L.
I
Mencken.
know the name, but I don't know.
Okay, so he was a very right wing writer who was like maybe like a precursor to like the alt right. So he was like one of the biggest writers in America. And then
I
and
see.
he was like anti Roosevelt. He didn't want to get into World War II. He was like anti any like social welfare programs. He was like super libertarian, but also like racist, quote unquote racist and misogynist, like for the time, and all that. So he's beloved by like a lot of people, like intellectual people, all right. So his name is H.L. Mencken, and so they called this guy Mencken, which is like too on the nose for like what the show is. What it's usually a little more subtle than that, but maybe that is subtle. Maybe just to me, Mencken is like so obvious, but maybe it's not to maybe it's not to
Yeah,
like
but
most
I'm
viewers.
I'm also like naive to the sort of roots of a lot of political stuff in general. So maybe it was like a I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah. So
so yeah, go on.
so they choose Mencken. Anyways, yeah, that's it. No, I'll say one more thing. I thought that was funny. Is like he asks him if like I think Rome asks him if he's like a fascist or something. He's like, I'll take ideas from anybody, like whether it comes from I don't know. He names somebody and then he's like or H. It was like H like Hitler. Like he's like or H. Did you see this?
Okay, I don't remember
No, no.
that.
He asked him, he's like, what are your intellectual influences? He's like, even if someone has bad, I will take him if they have good ideas, like X, Y, Z, and also, H. And he's like, H.
Oh,
A
okay. I
guy
don't
named
remember that.
H. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I don't remember that. That's yeah, that's wild. I mean,
Yeah, you gotta go
yeah,
back and watch
yeah,
this stuff. There's a
that
lot
was a
of
great yeah. That whole like yeah, that whole dynamic was interesting. I mean, I don't even know if yeah, yeah, yeah. That was interesting. I mean, one of the things that I liked about the show was I mean, the dialogue in general. You mentioned how it's kind of like too cute, right? The sort of oh, he's a neocon pretending to be a paleocon, and there's a lot of like, yeah, I thought the dialogue in the entire show was pretty well done. It's kind of unusual, like the insults that Tom uses, um the way that they like this is the only show I've seen where they use uh-huh so much as a way to like
hmm,
communicate like dialogue like it serves like multiple functions in the show where like it could just mean yes, but it could also just mean like yeah, but I think you're bullshitting me. Or like Logan, whenever Logan says uh-huh, it's kind of
yeah.
like
Logan does that a
I'm
lot.
pretending to say yes, but I don't really mean yes.
And the thing about
Um
Logan is when he does this, when he says like "uh-huh" or like grunts or something, it's always like you don't know if it's like he's just old and like he's like out of energy or he's
yeah.
processing everything and he's just like, he's holding his cards, close. Like there's always that subtlety, especially in the first few seasons or the first season, where he's like, just recovering. Like you never know like how well he is. When he peed at Kendall's office, that
Oh
was a
yeah.
fascinating. Like, was he all there, or was he just like a dog, like marking his territory, or like some
Oh,
combination?
right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, they play kind of fast and loose with Logan's health status where like every season there's some kind of like a health crisis with Logan. I think the he had the UTI and his sort of like brain malfunction
Yeah,
I think in season 3 and no one
but he's
knows what to
old.
do.
Yeah,
They have to like feed
he's
into
a
his delusions
yeah,
during
yeah.
I think this was like a shareholders meeting
The shareholder,
and
where they were going to determine whether they were going to do something. They were going to sell off the company or something.
yeah, and they didn't know what to do, and they went back and forth, and I think ultimately they decided against it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Logan's health status is like constantly kind of hanging over the show, and it's odd because sometimes he seems like very vigorous and
But
lively and
isn't
healthy,
that what
and
happens when you're old? I mean, isn't that just like
is it?
that's like not very unrealistic?
I thought that like sort of once you're on that sort of downhill. I mean, unless he's on like medication and other things that we're kind of unaware of, but I think like once you kind of start losing your mind, you
No,
don't
but he
like
doesn't lose
suddenly
his mind. He
return
had a UTI.
100%, do
He
you?
had he had a UTI infection, so that like his brain wasn't gone. His brain it was never. He was in a
Is
coma,
that
and I
true?
guess
And like,
yeah. No, it was an infection. It was like he had to take the medicine. As soon as he took the medicine, his brain was back. I mean, it was just like
is that
a
right?
temporary. Yeah, yeah,
At that
yeah.
age, though, I mean, I don't know.
Well, I
Like,
don't
I
know
mean, it's
that
all
age.
a show, so like, of course they can do this if they want. I mean, maybe
No, but
they
like,
accelerated his recovery.
yeah, it's not like how much he's all there is an open question. But I don't think it's weird for like they say about like even people with Alzheimer's they say there's good days and bad days. So he doesn't have Alzheimer's, right? He's just like
Yeah,
sort of on the down. So he's gonna have some good days. But he starts the show when he starts the show. He's just had a major whatever it was a stroke or something. Um,
yeah,
so he's recovering. He's recovering from that. Like he's gonna reach some plateau but he's going to still have like good days and bad days. He's going to be more energetic and sharper some days than others just because he's old. So yeah, I like what they. I mean, I like what they do. I like this because it's like yeah, like this is like what people. It's like this is what being old I think is like, and like he has this part of him that's like the intellect, but like he also has a part of him that's like instinct, and that's what he's been working on his working off of his whole life and he it's like his instincts are still there when he goes and pees in Kendall's off. It's like it's not random where he goes
oh
pees.
yeah,
He like goes pees like where he like where he would make the most statement, and then like he has a he could say he can have some plausible deniability. But a part of him, of course, knows what he's doing there. So yeah, I think Rogue. I think this this grunting and this aha that you talk about. I think it has a purpose.
well, it's
I
not just Logan, but I guess one could argue that like maybe the kids picked it up from him when they were when they were kids or something because all the Roys, I think it's all the Roys, right? I don't think we ever really hear Greg say it. Tom, I can't really recall, but yeah, Kendall and Shiv say it a lot. Um, Roman maybe to a
hmm.
lesser extent, but yeah, yeah. Speaking of Roman, so what like is Roman actually a pervert or does he pretend to be a pervert to like
Huh?
whatever,
Why do you think he
mess with
pretends?
people.
Why do you think he pretends?
I mean, he always
Well,
makes
define
these like,
pervert.
oh no
A
no
guy who
no,
can't.
he is, I guess, in a way, because we have seen him with Jerry, right, where like she'll talk to him while he jerks himself
Yeah,
off.
but to you, for a
Um,
guy who can't have sex, to you, is that a pervert?
that's not a pervert. I get. Well, I guess like in this kind of colloquial case, we're using it as like a shorthand for someone who can't have sex the normal way.
Yeah. So
Um,
like there's a thing of like being asexual, right? And so like there's that. But like okay, that's like I would say that's not a pervert. But if like you are like doing things like he wants to no, so he
well, he
wants to have
wanted the
sex with
girl to
her. He
pretend to be
wants
dead.
exactly, exactly. So he
That's
cannot
kind
have normal
of,
sex. Yes.
yeah.
Right. Right. He so
Yeah.
he's
Well, he
but
says
it's
that, right?
clear.
Like where she asks like him to have sex with her, and he says like, "Okay, can we make it a little bit weird?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "What do you mean?" And then like later, it's like he just wants her to lay there and pretend to be dead. I mean, there was that kind of,
But
it's
then
kind of a
like the
cool
worst part,
scene.
he's talking, he's like objecting. She's like, is this not okay? He's like, well, a corpse is supposed to be dry.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was really
Yeah.
pretty dark. I mean, but like in the first, I think it was the first season. Remember where he sort of orchestrates like some girl, I don't remember who she was, to give her phone number to the wait staff at one of the dinners, and then later, the guy's calling her, and so the phone's vibrating, and Logan like presses the phone against her while they're making out, and I think like this was like an act of cruelty on Roman's part, right? Because he wants to like know that this guy's trying to get her while he's hooking up with her. But
Yeah.
that was like the only time where you really see Roman like in that sort of seductive frame of like being with a a woman his own age in like a really sexual situation where you don't actually see them like fully engaging in the act, but like they're making out, and he's like has this like dark look in his eyes when the phone starts ringing.
Yeah.
So,
I don't have,
but
yeah,
like I don't know if that you never see him do anything like that again, and
well, no, he's trying to have sex
he
with, he
has
wants
this
to have
like,
sex with corpses. I think like wanting to like have Jerry, this old woman, yell at him while he masturbates. To me, that's a pervert. I don't know. Is that not a pervert to you? Well, how high
yeah,
are your
yeah, yeah,
standards
and
for being
sending
a
her dick
pervert?
pics, right? He sends her dick pics and then
Yeah.
accidentally sends his dad a
But
dick
that's like
pic.
so normalized. It's like almost like that's not. But like, yeah, the fact that it's like an old, like 65-year-old woman.
Yeah, it's this
Um,
old lady who just
yeah,
yells at him while he jerks off,
yeah.
and that's like his way of flirting. And she tells him to stop, right? She explicitly tells him, "You can't do this," and he
Well,
keeps doing it.
yeah, but she's encouraging it. That's part of the game. I think she tells him to stop, but then she like always like goes along
Yeah,
with it. I think yeah, I think she's guilty in this too.
but he's not
Uh,
like I think like early on you're supposed to be like questioning like, is Roman gay? But then I guess
yeah,
he's not gay,
I don't think
right?
you think
Because
he's.
he has
I
this
never
weird
thought he
love
was
affair with
gay.
Jerry.
Yeah, he can't have
But he
sex.
just can't have. But like, I wonder if there's like, will the show provide an explanation for this, or is this just
I think it's supposed to be
Rome?
part of his like personality. Like he's like got like deep inferiority. Like I don't have a good model of like how sexual perversions or deviance works. Like I don't have a good model of that in my head. But I think
Yeah,
what the show is trying to do is something like he's so screwed up from how he grew up or whatever, that he is he doesn't think he deserves to have sex or something like that. I mean, he doesn't like he's like maybe can't be vulnerable enough. I don't know, something like that. And he likes to be like abused. He finds it fun, like enjoyable. That's the only thing that gets him
yeah,
off, right?
verbal abuse. Yeah.
Right, maybe physical. I don't know, like we don't see it, but like it's like yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
So I think that's what's going on, right? I think that's what's supposed to be going on. um but he's also, I mean, he's fascinating because he's also confident, very confident in a way, right? He's very like, he's like, you get the idea that like he is good at dealing with other people. He's good at like being in the room and like making deals, and like he's charismatic. um and he's smart, he seems smart. And so it's like the sex stuff is like and then, like I think that like Logan
Sometimes he'll
respects him,
reach
like
out to his
yeah,
siblings. There were times where he would ask them like, "Do you ever want to just like talk like normal?" And they like either make a joke or shut him down or whatever. Like
yeah.
he he's asked like, "Do you
He
guys ever
has
want to
he
just like
has
talk
loyalty.
about?"
He has family loyalty, unquestionably. He has that positive trait.
And I think he's the
Um,
closest to being aware. Well, yeah, I don't know if that's, but he's the only one who ever addresses the fact that like they had a fucked up childhood, right? Like with the, like being locked in the cage as a dog, and then later on he asks, do you guys ever want to just talk about what we went through, something like that, and like to speak to them like normal. That's what he said. Do you guys ever want to just speak like normal? And I think what he's saying is like, do you guys ever want to speak without like like basically like shutting each other down, insults all the time, power
Yeah.
games, to just like speak on a person to person level. And
But
and I think
the
they make a joke back to him.
childhood, thing is like it's subjective, right? Because it's like, it's not like everyone has to remember it the way he was like, is he just a weak or strange person or something, or did his dad pick up on that and like treat him a certain way, right?
Yeah,
So
that's what
it's
I'm
hard to,
getting. That was sort of my impression, was that like he probably had like a more delicate personality in some ways, and Logan sensed that and jumped on it, and he became his sort of the target for most of his
yeah.
abuse,
But I
because
think he,
he's the one who's the most afraid of Logan. Whenever Logan raises his voice or like acts, I mean, he literally punched him, so it's understandable. But like, yeah,
yeah.
whenever Logan sort of like becomes sort of loud and whatever, like you can see Roman like physically kind of cower, or like his body language kind of shifts.
Yeah.
So
No, unquestionably he's that. I do think though in the end Logan respects him more than Kendall, because Kendall like Logan is, I mean, Roman is like a screw up, but like Kendall was like just trying to basically be his dad, and then like but couldn't handle like the pressure, and I think he sees like Roman as like like a free spirit who has like natural gifts and like will apply them, but is not like he doesn't need it. Like he likes the money, but he doesn't need ATN, right? And
mm,
I think that like Logan, Kendall needs ATN, or he needs something like that. When Kendall tries to become like this influencer, I love those scenes when he's like trying to like, he's like, what should I tweet? Like he's just like, it's like you're supposed to feel bad for this guy that he's sort of like this. And Roman doesn't have that kind of insecurity. It's a different insecurity. It's like something, about like, himself that's very deep and intimate. He doesn't like, he doesn't need, like, he's not out there fishing for like what the rest of the world is going to give him, right? He wants something maybe from his dad and maybe from his family, but not the rest of the world. And Kendall, I think, is sort of pathetic because he sort of needs like to be a social media influencer or like feel like an important guy to get ahead. So
yeah.
I
I mean, you
find
can see
these,
that with his birthday, right? His 40th
yeah,
birthday,
yeah, that was
where
funny.
he has this
I love those scenes.
massive monument to himself, but then he freaks out because he can't find his child's birthday gift. And
Yeah, he starts
yeah,
crying. You
yeah.
could tell. I mean, you could tell. I sort of like sympathize with Roman. I don't know if I'm unusual here, and then like, but not with Kendall. I think that's the normal reaction. It's like, well, maybe people sympathize with Kendall as like, I don't know, like if they're like, oh, like he's so hard for him. But like to me,
I
it's like
don't know.
I think I'm like Logan. What time is it in where you are,
It's
by the way?
11 here.
Okay,
Yeah, we
are you
should
getting
probably
tired?
wrap
It
up.
feels like you're.
Yeah, relatively soon. Yeah, it's 11 p.m. Uh, but yeah. I mean, is there? I guess like I mean, one of the things that I wanted to. I mean, we sort of touched on this before, was that both Tom and Greg are sort of these outsiders. They don't seem to have like self-defeating behaviors of the Roy kids, right? Where like, Kendall has his addiction, Roman has his sexual proclivities, like Shiv, I guess she has her own kind of, I mean, it's not quite as apparent, but she has her own
Yeah,
kind of shortcomings too. And I guess like maybe this desire for her dad's approval, but also like this kind of insecurity, which like Logan points out, that's why she married Tom in the first place. He said, "Oh, you married a man beneath your station," or something, and referring
oh,
to Tom. But like, yeah, Greg and Tom aren't like. I'm curious to see how their alliance will play out. Like there was that very kind of disturbing scene where Tom, do you remember he tells the story of Nero and Sporus? Um,
yes.
so he goes to Greg's office and says like, oh, Nero castrated his slave Sporus, and then he pushed his own wife down the stairs and married Sporus and made him dress like his wife. And then like tells Greg, I would castrate you and marry you any day.
Yeah.
and
No.
and then later he betrays his wife and enters an alliance with Greg.
Pushes her down the
You know,
stairs and seeks to castrate Greg. Is that what he's
yeah,
gonna do?
yeah, kind of
Well,
right. Like the
I did get
show's
that.
like
Yeah.
modern updated version of this. And I'm curious. Like, I think that alliance could work because neither one of them. I mean, Tom is insecure. I don't really get insecurity from Greg. I think like they may actually be able to work something out where they trust each other too, right? Like, I think part of the reason why Tom took Greg under his wing is to keep him under control. Like he felt like, oh, here's this other interloper, this outsider who may like take my position. I need to keep an eye on him, so I'll kind of bully him and keep him under my thumb. But then Greg turned out to actually be like a kind of decent guy. I mean, he knew how to play the game with like the blackmailing and the papers and stuff, but they did form like the closest thing the show has to a friendship. And
Yeah.
I wonder if like that'll actually work out with them, like working
Are we gonna?
together
Well, it's
and
gonna be interesting to see how Tom develops because, like, if he betrayed Shiv, like, can he have like like he's all like the entire show has been him like running around putting out fires, like being scared, um, living in fear of like Shiv and like trying to look the other way and not be too upset by her cheating. And so like if he has a break with Shiv and like it's to his benefit, like Logan starts promoting him, like how does he act in those situations? He's gonna have to be a different character. It's gonna be very interesting to see how that plays out.
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I think the Tom probably started out like loving Shiv, but I mean his main goal seems to also be like power before everything else. I mean, he stays out of the family squabbles as best he can. And I mean, there was that great scene where he walks in, this is like season 1, where Shiv and Roman are beating each other up in, that room in the hospital, and Tom walks in and sees it, and then he just walks right back out and walks away like, this is like not my problem, I'm not going to get involved. Like
Yeah,
he has his eye on the prize, I think, of like, trying to climb up without getting any of the Roy family on his bad side. um and then ultimately, yeah, he teams up with Logan, I guess
yeah,
because he senses, like he says, like Logan never gets fucked, so he's probably the right guy to
yeah,
I mean, Tom was willing to go to jail for him. Like that's how much he trusts Logan, right? Like he was literally willing to go to prison because he figured that like banking that favor was like, a critical move in his step towards
yeah. He
power.
needs he needs the baby. I think he needs the baby to sort of. You're talking about people need guarantees for stuff like that. Is like him trying to get like a written guarantee of something where you can't.
He needs
You
that
can't do
baby.
that.
So
You can't do that just through writing. Yeah. Did they ever agree to have? Does Shiv ever go along and agree to have a baby? They start talking about freezing eggs. They never get there, right?
yeah, I don't think they
They
do, and
never
I'm
agree.
not sure that they will at this point. But who knows? Like, right?
Oh,
They may
I think they're
surprise
finished.
us.
Aren't they finished? Doesn't Shiv know that like he betrayed them? Aren't they
That's what
probably?
I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
probably, but
Yeah.
the show could go in an odd direction where, like, maybe in the interim between the end of the
Yeah.
seasons, that he talks Shiv into joining the alliance against Kendall and Roman. Or probably won't happen. I mean, I don't really see it going that
Yeah.
way, but
One thing
you
I
never
hope it
know.
doesn't. I think it's at the right level of like political and has the right level of politics and preachiness. I hope it doesn't go like it's getting a slightly more preachy. It's still okay for me. Like at the beginning, like I didn't even know like they were supposed to be a right wing network. I don't think that's even clear until maybe like halfway through season 1 or late. So you get that. You get like these things, but as we've talked about, it's sort of balanced. You could see like sort of the right wing points in there, but you see like the left wing perspective too. I hope it doesn't go into a direction where it's just like building up to be just like a left wing screed, right? I hope it doesn't go in that
Oh yeah.
direction. Um, I hope it's one thing we didn't talk about, which we probably should talk about, like one of the early things where Greg is like when he gets hired, he's watching the diversity video. And they're like, and
Okay.
all the diversity has all these different races, and it's like we're diverse here, and then he's like looking at the room, and then it's like white man after white man, and like there's a parade of white men like coming out, and it's so I think it's like it's interesting because like I think they needed to do that because like it has remarkably low level of diversity for like a show in 2021 um or
Right.
2022, and they had to like have one comment on that to see like, oh, they're hypocrites, they have a corporate diversity video, but they don't live up to it. um and yeah, that was, I mean, I thought that was interesting, and it's like the show justifying it to itself. It's like you have to have like a reason to not be diverse. Like you can do it in like Game of Thrones, and like you could do it in like old
Yeah.
shows
Well, what's
like
interesting is that like if they were depicting a left-wing news organization, I think they would put like, black executives and more women, and like it would be more diverse somehow, right? Like if this was a portrayal of like the Pierce family's media empire, you would see more people of color. And so like
You
to
certainly
me,
see more women. I don't know if the I don't know if you
I think
yeah.
they would try to like they would make it more diverse than it would be in real life simply because it was a left-wing news organization
Yes.
and they would want to like portray it as something better than it really was.
Yes. Right.
I think in this case they had to portray it as something worse than it really is. But then to fend off any criticisms of, oh, like why is it all white people? They had to put that little cute scene in there to
Yeah.
show like, oh, oh, this is why. And so
And
I
but
was
they
like, I
also,
mean,
I mean,
they,
but I think, but what makes me think the show is sort of right wing, or the producers maybe are, is like they have other opportunities to introduce diversity, like tech mongols. Like when they're talking to
yeah,
people who are like big in tech, there's like an Asian guy, that gay Asian guy, right? And then there's that like white blonde guy, right, from Europe. And so like you could imagine shows that would make like the computer genius like a black woman, like a tech entrepreneur, right? And
yeah.
they don't do anything like that.
Well, so you're saying like just by reflecting like patterns,
Oh
like
yes, that's
regularities that exist in reality, it makes
oh
it
yeah,
right wing.
yeah,
Which
of
is in
course,
a way
no,
there's some truth to that, right? Because like part of a lot of entertainment isn't reflecting reality as it is, but like trying to push an agenda to make it what you wish it would be.
right.
Um, and
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 you
this does, yeah, the show doesn't really do that.
yeah.
So
No, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that is
that's I mean,
fundamental to
so the
fundamental
producer
to
of the show, the creator is actually British.
uh,
And I wonder if that I don't know what his politics are, but I wonder if like just like not being American makes him like a more keen observer of these kinds of dynamics and makes him less ideological in some ways. I mean, it's really interesting that a British person could have like his, you know,
yeah.
portray American life this accurately, or at least like
Yeah,
this sort
but
of segment of
people
American life.
overseas, particularly English-speaking countries, they often pay very close attention to American politics. So I don't think it's that weird. And then you
Yeah.
have the Murdoch thing, and Murdoch is all over the English-speaking world, the empire.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
that's true.
Daily
He's
Mail
Australian,
is
Murdoch.
yeah, he's
So
Australian. I think
yeah,
they own the
and I
Daily.
think
Don't they
that's
own the
why
yeah,
Logan is Scottish, right? Because there's like surprisingly a lot of, I mean, not that like a lot of scenes are in the UK, and but I guess yeah, because Logan is Scottish, so they were able to do that, like work that into the character. So, but
yeah,
anyway, man,
exactly.
I should get going.
Yeah.
It is getting late. Speaking of the UK, it's getting late here in Cambridge, so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is what happens when you do 8 hours apart. So I'm in California, and you're
But
in
we're gonna keep
Henderson.
we'll keep doing Succession. As it comes out, we'll do more of these, and yeah, I'll resume Mad Men so we can talk about that soon.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna do Mad Men, and then other people in the comments, either on my Substack or YouTube. Probably Substack is better because I probably less likely to read the comments on YouTube. If there's any shows you want to you want us to watch or talk about, or there's any comments you have about this, Rob is about to pass out, so I'm gonna let him go. All right, it was fun, man. It was great talking to you.
All right, yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Richard.